You are in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil. It's an ordinary weekday morning, the faint smell of toast in the air, the fridge humming behind you, your phone face down on the counter. You're thinking about the day ahead, emails to answer, errands to run, nothing urgent. The morning light through the window is soft and unremarkable. Then the sound arrives, not from inside the house, but from somewhere beyond it. A rising mechanical wail, threading through the ordinary noise of the neighborhood. Sirens, you've heard them in tests before, the first Wednesday of every month, but never this long, never this insistent. Your phone vibrates against the laminate, screen lighting up. You glance down. The banner fills the display in red. Emergency alert, nuclear attack warning, take shelter immediately. This is not a drill. For half a second, your brain refuses to process it. Wrong region, wrong century, wrong life. This happens in movies, not next to a half-written grocery list. Outside, a car engine cuts. Somewhere above, a television goes silent mid-sentence. The kettle clicks off and the sudden quiet makes the siren outside sound sharper. You're still holding a piece of toast. Another line scrolls beneath the alert. Go inside, stay tuned. Your mouth tastes metallic. Your hands feel weightless. Part of you wants to ignore it. Part of you wants to run to the window. You don't have time for either. You put the toast down. You pick the phone up. You move. You step away from the kitchen window without consciously deciding to. Your body is already responding to something your mind hasn't fully processed. You're still in your socks, still in the life you had 30 seconds ago, but now there's a new rule forming in your head. Being near glass is dangerous. You say it out loud just once to hear your own voice in the strange quiet. This is a nuclear alert. Naming it makes it real. It also makes you move. You scan your apartment mentally, seeing it differently than you ever have before. Exterior walls and windows, dangerous. Inner rooms with no windows, safer. Basement, if you could reach it quickly, ideal. But the building basement is at the far end of the corridor through 2 fire doors and a stairwell that's probably filling with confused neighbors right now. Too slow, too exposed. Your eyes settle on the bathroom. No windows, solid interior walls close. The hallway outside the bedrooms is also interior, but open at both ends. The bedroom has large windows along one wall. Not good. You don't need perfect. You need better than standing here. Bathroom, you say to yourself. The act of deciding is oxygen. You walk, not run, out of the kitchen, away from the window, phone in hand. Your heart pounds against your ribs. Your body wants to sprint. You don't let it. Under your breath, move, don't freeze, and you obey your own instruction. You step into the bathroom and close the door behind you. The room feels smaller now, more immediate. There's a hum from the ventilation fan, a towel crumpled on the floor, bottles of shampoo lined along the edge of the tub. Ordinary things made strange by context. Civil defense guidance is clear on this point. When seconds matter, any building and any interior room is better than being outside or near windows. Brick and concrete provide more shielding than wood, but even wood walls are better than open air. If you have a basement, that's ideal. More earth and concrete between you and the outside. If you're in a multi-story building, an interior room on a middle floor works well. You don't have a basement. You have this bathroom. You lock the door, not because of intruders, but because the click of the lock anchors you. One more barrier, even if only psychological. You stand there, hands still on the knob, breathing loudly in the small space. Your brain throws questions at you. Is it really happening? Is it here? Am I overreacting? You answer with a simple rule. Alert says shelter. I shelter. You step away from the door, and move toward the corner farthest from where you estimate the exterior wall to be. You've made your first critical decision. You chose an inner space over curiosity, shelter over confirmation. It takes less than a minute, but it may be the most important minute of your life. 5 minutes after the alert, time feels distorted, stretched thin and compressed simultaneously. If a detonation has already happened nearby, you might see a flash through whatever gaps exist in your curtains. If you're close enough, the shockwave could arrive seconds later. If you're farther away, you might notice nothing yet, just sirens and silence. Civil defense guidance for nuclear explosions is direct. Do not look at the flash. It can cause temporary or permanent blindness even at significant distances. If you see a bright light and have a moment to react, drop and cover, face down, hands protecting your head and neck, behind any solid object available. Here in the bathroom you can't see the sky. That's good. You sit down on the tile floor, back against an interior wall, knees drawn up. You grab a folded bath towel and drape it loosely over your head and neck. Not because cloth stops radiation, but because if something shakes loose from the ceiling, you'd rather cushion your skull. You listen. The sirens continue their rise and fall. You think you hear a distant thump, or maybe it's a truck, or your own pulse in your ears. You don't know. You don't need to know. There's a powerful temptation to stand up, crack the door, check the window. You stay seated. You start breathing deliberately, in for 4 counts, hold for 2, out for 6. At first you rush the count, then you slow it down. This is shock, you tell yourself quietly. It doesn't get to decide what I do. 10 minutes in, something shifts. The initial surge of adrenaline begins to fade, leaving behind a hollow, buzzing exhaustion. Your hands aren't shaking as much. Your thinking moves from reactive panic towards something more functional. Here is a crucial piece of physics translated into plain language. When a nuclear weapon detonates at or near ground level, it kicks up an enormous cloud of debris. That debris becomes fallout, radioactive particles that rise into the atmosphere, drift with the wind, then settle back to Earth. The heaviest particles fall first, closest to ground zero. Lighter particles take longer, sometimes 15 minutes or more, to begin reaching areas outside the immediate blast zone. That delay is not a window to go outside and watch. It's a window to make your shelter better. You stand slowly and crack the bathroom door just enough to move into the hallway. You keep your movements purposeful. You gather what you can reach quickly: water bottles from the kitchen, crackers and canned food, your medications, a battery-powered radio, duct tape, clean towels, a flashlight, your phone charger. Each time you step out of the bathroom, you set a limit: 30 seconds, then back. You stick to it. Back in the bathroom, you arrange your supplies on the floor. Then you do something simple but important. You close all interior doors in the apartment and stuff towels into the gap under the front door. Less air movement means less space for contaminated dust to travel. You check the time: 12 minutes since you started. You were sure it had been an hour. You write on a scrap of paper: shelter, start, 0820. You're building a timeline now. You're not just reacting, you're tracking. By the time an hour has passed, the world outside may be radically different. You don't know that. You're not going to check. What you do know is that radiation from fallout is worst near exposed surfaces, ground, rooftops, exterior walls, and that the more dense material you can place between yourself and those surfaces, the more you reduce your exposure. Time, distance, shielding. You can't control time except by waiting. Distance and shielding you can improve. You open the bathroom door again, but only into your apartment. Staying low, you drag what you can manage: a heavy dresser from the bedroom, inching it along with your shoulder, a stack of books from the living room, a laundry basket full of clothes. Not ideal shielding, But mass is mass. Any containers you can fill with water. Water absorbs radiation effectively. You position these along the wall that faces the building's exterior. The goal is to create a thick barrier between your body and the direction fallout radiation is most likely to come from. When you've done what you can without exhausting yourself, you sit back down on the bathroom floor and check the time. 0910, you've been actively improving your survival odds for nearly an hour. You notice something, the sirens have stopped, or you can't hear them anymore through your barriers. The silence feels thicker than any wall. Quiet just means less noise, you say softly. It doesn't mean less danger. You take a small sip of water, not the long drink your throat wants. You're rationing now, even if you haven't said that word to yourself yet. By the second hour, your body has metabolized most of the initial adrenaline. What remains is a jittery, brittle feeling under your skin, like static electricity that won't discharge. This is when people get impulsive. This is when bad decisions happen. You decide not to be one of those people. You lay out your supplies and do a quick inventory. Water, how many liters? You count bottles. Food, how many small meals if you portion carefully? Light, what batteries you have, how long your flashlight runs on low. Medications, how many days worth? Guidance from emergency preparedness agencies converges on the same core idea. Expect to stay inside for at least 24 hours, possibly longer, until authorities confirm it's safe to leave. So you plan for 24 hours minimum. That means dividing water and food into small, regular portions instead of eating from stress. You write another line on your paper. Plan 24 hours inside minimum. Then you make a simple schedule. Every hour, check time, check radio briefly. Every 2 hours, small drink of water, small amount of food. After every check, 1 minute of slow breathing, 1 minute of gentle stretching. It feels almost absurd. A schedule? Now. But that's exactly what your nervous system needs, a structure that isn't panic. You glance at your phone for the time, then turn the screen face down. Battery conservation matters now. Under your breath, I can do 1 hour, then another hour, not the whole day at once. You're not lying to yourself. You're breaking an impossible problem into possible pieces. By hour 3, the questions in your head shift. The first wave was, is this real? Now it's, what exactly happened? Where? How bad? Information is a human need, but information can also be a trap. You pull out the battery-powered radio and extend its antenna. Official emergency guidance emphasizes this point. In radiation emergencies, the best actions are to get inside, and stay tuned to official broadcasts when available. You turn the dial slowly, searching for structure amid static. At first, only hiss. Then faintly a voice. Remain indoors. Repeat, remain indoors and await further instructions. You adjust the antenna. The voice firms up, still cut with noise but intelligible. You catch fragments, city names, the words detonation, fallout, critical infrastructure, shelter for at least 24 hours. You resist the urge to turn the volume up and leave it running. The radio isn't background music. It's a pulse you check periodically, not a constant flood. You note down what you hear. Government broadcast, at 11:30, detonation confirmed. Stay indoors, inner rooms, 24 hours minimum. Then you turn the radio off. Your brain protests, more. There must be more. You answer calmly. Anything else they say right now won't change what I need to do this hour. This is a key psychological discipline, limiting exposure to distress that doesn't change your actions. You consume only information that affects your decisions. Everything else is noise. You check the time, turn the phone face down, and take 3 slow breaths. You're controlling not just where your body is, but what your mind is allowed to process. Afternoon arrives, or what you assume is afternoon based on your phone clock. You've been in your shelter for several hours. You've moved furniture, sealed gaps, built a schedule, heard at least one official voice confirming you should keep doing exactly what you're doing. Then comes a sound you haven't heard yet. A knock. Not on the bathroom door. On your front door. Dull, urgent. You freeze. Your hand moves instinctively toward the bathroom handle. A voice muffled through wooden towel. "Hello, anyone there? Did you get the alert?" Your heartbeat accelerates so fast, your vision blurs at the edges. Civil defense guidance doesn't offer easy moral answers here. It says this: every time you open an exterior door after fallout begins settling, you potentially bring contaminated dust inside, increasing exposure for everyone. It also says that if someone is caught outside when fallout begins, they should get into the nearest building as quickly as possible. You stand in the bathroom, mind racing through options. You give yourself a rule. I don't open the outer door just to talk. If I open it, it's to bring someone in quickly, then close it again. You move to the hallway, staying clear of the front door's sightline, and raise your voice. I heard the alert. I'm sheltering in an inner room away from windows. You should do the same. Get inside your place. Pick an inner room, seal the gaps. Stay there. A pause. Then a shaky, "Okay?" Footsteps recede. Guilt stabs through you anyway. Back in the bathroom. Your hand trembles as you readjust the towel at the door's base. You realize you keep touching the door handle when you're uncertain. It's become your motif, your anchor point. This is when panic tries to take over, you tell yourself. I push back with boundaries. You sit, check the time, take your rationed sip, and write, "Neighbor, all 14:10, gave instructions, stayed inside." Evening edges in. The faint light leaking under the bathroom door dims gradually, shifting from pale grey to something darker. Your phone says it's just after 5 in the afternoon, but it feels like you've lived several days compressed into one. The air in the bathroom has grown stale. You notice it now, a thickness in each breath that wasn't there this morning. Somewhere between the 7th and 10th hour, a different feeling emerges, disbelief. It's quiet. Your building still stands. You hear no explosions, no helicopters, no chaos in the streets. The sirens stopped hours ago. Your brain begins whispering seductively, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it missed your area entirely. Maybe the fallout isn't here. Maybe you could just look. One quick glance through the window to confirm the world still exists. Every survival manual, every civil defense pamphlet about radiation emergencies fights this urge with the same principle. Danger you can't see is still danger. Fallout isn't a dramatic storm with visible clouds. It's dust, particles so fine they're invisible to the naked eye. The highest radiation levels occur in the first hours after fallout begins settling on surfaces. Staying indoors during those critical hours is one of the most protective actions available to you. You're not going to be the person who breaks hours of careful decisions for a 10-second glance that changes nothing. You feel yourself stand up anyway. Your legs move before your brain catches up. You take 3 steps toward the door before you recognize what you're doing. "Stop," you say aloud. The sound of your own voice breaks the trance. You place your palm flat against the inside of the door. Feel the cool wood grain, the slight texture of old paint beneath your fingers. You use that physical sensation as an anchor, something real and immediate to focus on. This is curiosity, you tell yourself firmly. Curiosity is not safety. You back away and sit down again, deliberately positioning yourself to face away from where a window would be if this room had one. But you give your eyes something else to do. Tracing the woven pattern on the bath towel beside you, reading the ingredient lists on shampoo bottles, watching the second hand on your watch complete its slow circuits. Whenever the urge rises again, and it does repeatedly, you pair it with a counter-ritual: 3 deliberate breaths, 1 small sip of water, 1 look at your written timeline on the floor beside you. You repeat until the urge loses its sharp edge. You're training your own nervous system now, gently, consistently, patiently redirecting it away from the metaphorical cliff. This is what discipline looks like, not the absence of impulse, but the choice to override it. Night settles fully over the building. There is no normal bedtime in a nuclear shelter, but your body maintains its rhythms regardless of external circumstances. You feel heavy, neck aching from hours of tension, legs sore and stiff from sitting on hard tile, eyelids dragging downward with exhaustion you can no longer ignore. You check the radio at your scheduled time, turning the dial carefully to minimize battery drain. The voice is still there, still repeating its loop. Remain sheltered. Do not travel toward the affected area. Stay tuned for updates from local authorities. They mention regions and general directions. They might indicate which cities were hit, though the signal cuts in and out. Either way, your instruction remains unchanged. Stay inside in the most shielded space available until authorities confirm it's safe to leave or move. You add to your handwritten notes. 21 cool broadcast. Still stay inside. No change in guidance. You turn the radio off. It's easier to do this time. You're learning to trust the schedule, to believe that the information will still be there when you check again. Now comes a decision you've been postponing. Do you try to sleep? Part of you insists it's impossible. How could anyone sleep now with the world possibly ending beyond these walls? Your mind races through scenarios, possibilities, fears. Another part, the more rational part, understands that if you don't rest at all tonight, you'll be useless tomorrow. If authorities call for evacuation, if someone in the building needs help, if circumstances shift and require you to move quickly, you need to have something left in reserve. Exhaustion makes people stupid. Exhaustion gets people killed. Emergency preparedness guidance from the Red Cross and FEMA reminds people. In extended emergencies, managing fatigue is as important as managing supplies. You can't pour from an empty vessel. Rest is not weakness, it's strategy. So you compromise with yourself. You dim your light to the lowest level that still allows you to see your immediate surroundings. You arrange the towels and a thin blanket from the hall closet into a rough pallet on the floor, positioning yourself in the corner farthest from any wall that might touch the building's exterior. You say to yourself, forming the words carefully, "I will close my eyes. I will allow my body to rest. If I wake, I check the time and the radio at my next scheduled point. That's enough. That's all I'm asking of myself." Before lying down, you choose a phrase, something simple to repeat when your heart starts racing in the darkness. You consider several options and settle on 3 words. Inside, away, breathing. You lie down on the makeshift pallet, knees slightly bent, back curved against the wall. The floor is hard beneath the thin padding. You shift your weight until the discomfort becomes tolerable. You whisper your phrase once, twice, 10 times like a meditation mantra. At some point, without meaning to or realizing when it happens, you stop mid-word. You've fallen asleep. You wake disoriented, consciousness surfacing slowly like rising through deep water. There's no visible sunrise filtering into the bathroom, no direct environmental cue to mark the hour, just stiffness radiating through your spine and a low, persistent ache in your lower back from sleeping on tile. For a long, confused moment, you don't know where you are or why you're lying on a bathroom floor surrounded by water bottles and stacked books. Then memory floods back with physical force, and the room snaps into sharp focus. The alert, the sirens, the sealed door, the waiting. You fumble for your phone in the dim space. The screen illuminates 0437. You've made it through. Most of a night you genuinely weren't sure you'd survive. The realization settles over you slowly, like warmth returning to cold limbs. You sit up carefully, head swimming slightly from dehydration and disrupted sleep, and do a quiet self-assessment. You check systematically. Fingers flex normally, toes respond, breathing feels clear if shallow, no new symptoms you can identify. You feel exhausted, deeply thirsty, sore in muscles you didn't know could ache, but fundamentally intact. Your body carried you through. That matters. Next, you check your seals with methodical attention. You press your hand along the towel, stuffed at the bathroom door's base, still snug, still blocking the gap. You move your ear close to the door edges, listening for any whistle or draft that might indicate airflow. Nothing obvious. You scan the small space visually, looking for dust accumulation or visible particles that might suggest contamination has breached your barriers. Everything appears unchanged from when you fell asleep. You turn on the radio at low volume, keeping the speaker close to your ear to conserve battery. The broadcast cycles continue in their familiar loop. Stay indoors. Do not attempt to travel into impacted zones. Emergency services are assessing damage in affected areas. Radiation levels in certain zones remain elevated and dangerous. You listen just long enough to confirm nothing has changed for your situation. Keep doing what I'm doing, you translate aloud, converting bureaucratic language into personal instruction. You add a line to your growing log. Woe 445, message unchanged, stayed inside through entire night, seals intact. Then, unexpectedly, you feel something like pride rise in your chest. Small, quiet, fragile as a soap bubble, but unmistakably real. You didn't bolt for the door when darkness pressed against you. You didn't break the seal to satisfy midnight curiosity. You didn't give in to the whispered urges to just check, just look, just confirm. You held the line through the hardest hours. That counts. That matters. That is survival. You stretch in place with careful movements, neck rolling slowly, shoulders lifting and dropping, wrists rotating, back arching gently, legs extending. No wandering around the apartment, no unnecessary movement through potentially compromised air, just coaxing your stiff body back from the statue stillness of sleep. By the time you finish your stretching routine, faint grey light is beginning to leak under the bathroom door. Dawn is arriving on schedule, indifferent to human catastrophe, whether the world outside is ready for it or not. You're still here to witness it. Sometime after sunrise, the information quality finally improves. You turn on the radio during one of your scheduled hourly checks, expecting the same fragmented loops you've been hearing since yesterday. But this time, instead of broken sentences and static, interrupted phrases, you hear something different. A structured bulletin delivered by a clear voice at measured pace, with repeated key phrases designed for comprehension. You're not going to learn exactly which cities were hit. The broadcast speaks in regions and general terms. In this moment, you only know with certainty that somewhere a nuclear detonation occurred, and that you were not in the immediate blast radius or fire zone. The evidence: you're alive, uninjured, in a building that still stands and functions. The guidance you're hearing is intended for people exactly like you, those in surrounding areas where fallout, infrastructure disruption, and psychological fear are the primary threats, rather than direct blast effects. The announcer says, in deliberately steady tones, if you are in the affected region, remain inside in the most protected part of your building until instructed otherwise by local authorities. Radiation levels from fallout are highest in the first several hours following detonation and decline rapidly thereafter, but may still present significant danger in some areas for extended periods. Do not attempt to travel toward the impacted city or into restricted zones. Expect to remain sheltered for at least 24 hours from the time of detonation. In some areas, extended sheltering of 48 to 72 hours may be required. Continue listening for local updates and specific instructions for your zone. This matches precisely what agencies like the CDC, FEMA, EPA, and Ready.gov publish in their publicly available nuclear emergency guidance. After a nuclear detonation, stay inside a sturdy building, move to an inner room or basement, remain there ideally for at least 24 hours because radiation levels from fallout decrease significantly with time as radioactive particles decay. You check your handwritten notes, your shelter. Start time was recorded as 08:20 yesterday morning. It's now just after 09 East the following day. You've crossed the critical 24-hour threshold. The broadcast doesn't say all clear, or you notice that carefully. It doesn't promise imminent rescue or restoration of normal life. What it does is confirm that what you've been doing is correct. Your actions aligned with expert recommendations. Your instincts, guided by half-remembered civil defense principles, led you to the right choices. You say quietly, a thin smile crossing your face despite everything. I was ahead of the curve. That realization matters more than you might expect. The choices you made under pressure, moving inside immediately when the alert sounded, choosing an interior room without windows, sealing gaps and cracks, adding improvised shielding with furniture and books, creating and sticking to a schedule for water, food, and information. These are exactly what trained emergency responders would have told you to do. You weren't overreacting or being paranoid. You were responding appropriately to a genuine threat. A new feeling takes root in your chest, unfamiliar after so many hours of fear and discipline, confidence, not arrogance. You know the danger isn't over, but genuine, earned confidence that you can handle what comes next. Late morning of day 2. Light filters into the apartment more strongly now, visible as bright lines beneath doors and around window edges in rooms you haven't entered since yesterday. Your interior bathroom space remains dim and close, but you can sense the daylight beyond your barriers. You can hear sounds that weren't present yesterday, distant helicopter rotors maybe, or heavy trucks moving on nearby streets, or human voices calling to each other somewhere in the building or outside. You inventory your remaining supplies with careful attention. You used less water than you initially feared. Your rationing discipline held through the night. You still have food for at least another full day at reduced portions, possibly 2 if you stretch further. Your phone battery is lower but not yet critical. The radio has carried most of the information burden and still has power remaining. Emergency broadcasts, when you check them, mention that in some zones authorities will begin assessing neighborhoods systematically, possibly organizing evacuations when routes are confirmed. Safe and measured radiation levels drop to acceptable thresholds. In other areas, they emphasize continued sheltering, possibly for several more days depending on wind patterns and fallout distribution. For now, the instruction that applies to you remains singular and clear. Stay put until you receive more specific, localized guidance for your area. So, you stay. You've learned how to do this now. Waiting has become a skill you possess. Pick up the water bottle you marked yesterday, the one that has become more than just a container for hydration. Near the top, your first notation in rushed, shaky handwriting, shelter start, so 8:20, day 1. Underneath that line, you write now with a steadier hand, day 1 complete, continuing shelter. The bottle has transformed into a timeline rendered in plastic and ink, a physical record of survival. You run your thumb over the drying ink and let yourself briefly review the sequence of decisions that brought you here. Kitchen, kettle, siren. The choice to step away from the window instead of toward it. Interior room instead of exposed hallway. Sealing gaps with towels instead of filming the sky for social media. Dragging furniture against the wall instead of packing a bag and fleeing. Radio checks on a disciplined schedule instead of endless doom scrolling through dying phone battery. Breathing exercises instead of screaming into the void. Saying no to the window's seductive call. Choosing rest over exhausting vigilance. Giving instructions to a frightened neighbor instead of pretending not to hear. None of these individual actions are glamorous or cinematic. None will ever appear on a movie poster or inspire dramatic reenactments. They're quiet, repetitive, almost mundane things, small choices performed consistently in an extraordinary and terrifying context. They're also, in the plain actuarial language of civil defense statistics, the difference between higher radiation exposure and lower exposure. The difference between a recoverable future with manageable health consequences and a much shorter, more painful one. Every hour you stayed sealed, every impulse you overrode, every moment you chose discipline over panic, each one compounded into increased survival probability. You look around your improvised shelter with something approaching affection. Towels stuffed at the door's base, slightly askew now but still doing their job. Books and furniture stacked against the exterior wall, forming a dense barrier. The radio sitting silent in the corner, ready to speak again when you need it, your handwritten notes spread on the floor like archaeological artifacts documenting every decision point. The threat outside remains real. You're not naive about that. The fallout patterns are complex and will take time to fully map. The political and social situation that led to this moment is far beyond anything you can directly influence or even fully understand from your bathroom floor. But in this small radius, the reach of your arm, the depth of this room, the space you can control, you've proven something important to yourself. You can choose discipline over panic when it matters. You can take action instead of freezing. You can build structure instead of surrendering to chaos. You can override your own worst impulses through simple repetition and commitment. You can't guarantee the coming week or month or year. You never could, even before yesterday morning changed everything. The future has always been uncertain. You simply didn't notice it as acutely before. What you can do is exactly what you did for the last 24 hours. Check the time. Listen to the radio briefly at scheduled intervals, act only on confirmed official guidance, protect your breathing space, share what you know if it helps someone nearby, and then sit back down and endure the waiting. The radio crackles to life as you turn it on for another check. Someone is speaking with measured authority about next steps, zones being assessed, routes being cleared, radiation measurements being taken, timelines being developed for different areas. You lean in to listen carefully, not as a terrified bystander paralyzed by events beyond your control, but as someone who has already survived the most statistically dangerous first day. You've earned the right to hear this information as a participant in your own rescue, not merely as a victim awaiting salvation. You understand now, and in a way you couldn't have yesterday morning, that survival after a nuclear event isn't only determined by your distance from ground zero, though that matters enormously. It's also determined by what you do in the first 5 minutes after the alert sounds, and what you keep doing calmly and consistently for all the difficult hours that follow. The choices compound, the discipline accumulates, the small decisions add up to large outcomes. The kettle is still sitting on the kitchen counter somewhere beyond these walls. Cold now, water long since evaporated or gone stale. The toast you were holding when the alert arrived sits where you dropped it, probably hard and inedible by now. You can picture them there, ordinary objects from a life that feels impossibly distant, though it was only yesterday morning. Just over 24 hours ago, you were thinking about emails and errands. Now you're thinking about radiation decay curves and shelter duration. The radio voice settles into greater clarity as the signal strengthens. Light edges around the sealed bathroom door, marking another day beginning. Your hand rests lightly on the time-marked water bottle, your timeline, your proof, your artifact of survival. No triumph, no swelling orchestral music, no dramatic rescue breaking down the door, just this quiet moment. You are still here, you made it through, and you know exactly how to get through the next hour, and the one after that.